de microseguros para autoridades de supervisión, profesionales de seguros y formuladores de políticas sobre el tema, denominado InsurTech, haciendo frente al desafío regulatorio. Vamos a dar comienzo a esta ceremonia de apertura, invitando a este escenario a Natalia Escobar, asesora senior de políticas de implementación y evaluación de la Asociación Internacional de Supervisores de Seguros. Adelante, por favor.
Buenos días. Para mí es un placer estar acá hoy representando a la Asociación Internacional de Supervisores de Seguros en este foro consultivo de uno de nuestros principales socios de implementación, que es el Access to Insurance Initiative. Para los que nos han acompañado en los dos últimos días, hemos podido ver y discutir cómo las innovaciones tecnológicas están teniendo un impacto revolucionario en el mercado de seguros, y uno de los beneficios que traen es una democratización en el acceso al seguro. El hecho que tantas personas en el mundo tengan o un smartphone o un celular en su bolsillo que les permite acceder a pagos más fáciles o a celebración de contratos de manera mucho menos complicada, ha sido una de las mejores consecuencias que tiene esta revolución tecnológica. Obviamente esto implica muchos desafíos desde el punto de vista regulatorio, precisamente porque en la innovación viene con una cantidad de incertidumbre, donde por un lado podemos ver las oportunidades, pero también la falta de definición en muchos de los aspectos nos tiene preocupados por los retos. Sin embargo, nosotros creemos que el papel de los supervisores de seguros en la promoción del desarrollo de un mercado de seguros inclusivos es fundamental. Sin un supervisor que esté educado, que esté al tanto de las innovaciones en materia tecnológica, pero que al mismo tiempo tenga conciencia de lo que se necesita para poder cerrar la brecha de protección y incluir cada vez más personas en el acceso a productos de seguros.
To insurance products, that is very important. So having that awareness, that knowledge is key. And Access to Insurance Initiative has been an essential player here. In the 10 years since its foundation, the work around the world has been essential for insurance supervisors to learn how to face these challenges and also have the spaces necessary to cooperate and discuss on the development of these new technologies. We think that InsurTech is changing the insurance business. There are many scenarios, such as disasters, where insurance companies will have nothing to do. We don't see that that is the future. On the contrary, we think that both the current insurers and the new startups are bringing improvements in terms of processes, costs, access, and this is essential. So we believe in the importance of the topic of today, particularly for Latin America, where the characteristics and the dynamics of our market and the high penetration of mobile technology is allowing for an adoption of digital insurance in a very fast way. In several countries, we have insurers that are fully digital, and that is a reason to celebrate. So I just wanted to say thank you to the Superintendents of Insurance of Argentina, the Access to Insurance Initiative, and the Microinsurance Network for organizing this event and giving us this opportunity of having this important discussion. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you, Natalia Escobar. Now, to continue with the opening ceremony, we're going to listen to Andrea Keenan, Vice President of the Board of Directors of the Microinsurance Network and Senior Executive Director of Industrial Relations of AM Best. Go ahead, please.
Gracias. Buenos días y bienvenido.
Good morning and welcome. And this is all the Spanish I'm going to say.
Speaking English. Thank you so much for welcoming us and attaching us to the end of the ASSAL meeting. Thank you to the Argentina Argentinian regulators, to A2II, and to IAIS for including the Microinsurance Network in the efforts and in the education of regulators in the industry about microinsurance. I'm a poor substitute for Catherine Pulvermacher, our executive director. We are 2 weeks away from our annual conference, and so she is very busy doing administrative work back in Luxembourg. But my heart and my experience is in Latin America, so I'm very, very happy to be here. Thank you. It is an exciting and frightening time in the insurance industry. Insurers are trying to be innovative, whatever that means. No one is quite sure what that means at this time. And they're trying to address and embrace technology while also trying to not be disrupted by it and to remain relevant in the providing of risk transfer products to policyholders. In the microinsurance space, all kinds of possibilities have opened, and when there were previously impasses and challenges that couldn't be overcome, technology is coming in and introducing possible solutions to those problems, and it's very exciting to be in the microinsurance space now. I have been a part of microinsurance for 10 years, and 10 years ago, we were exploring what is microinsurance and why does it matter. And now, thanks to global awareness, thanks to technological innovations, the advent of InsurTech, there is a new appetite to be part of financial inclusion and apply new technology solutions to what have previously seemed to be insurmountable challenges in the microinsurance space. And we're very excited to see how we find those solutions together. This forum provides the opportunity to discuss these challenges and solutions with an audience that has global experience, and that is the beauty of the organizations that have brought all of this together. We have experience around the world, and we want to share it, and we want to learn from the experiences here in Argentina and in Latin America, which is the point of the Microinsurance Network, which I hope if any of you are interested in becoming new members will please come to me at some point today. But we hope very much for this occasion to have productive sharing, and we hope that it is a productive day for everyone. And again, thank you so much for the invitation and for coming. Y otra vez, bienvenido.
And welcome again.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you, Andrea Keenan. And now we're going to listen to Ignacio Federici, leader of internal audit of the Superintendencia of Insurance of Argentina. Good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank the Access to Insurance Initiative, the IAIS, the Microinsurance Network, and ASSAL for having chosen Buenos Aires and Argentina to hold this meeting. I'm speaking on behalf of the Superintendent, Juan Paso, who is honored that for you having decided to hold this meeting following the ASSAL event, and also for having chosen Argentina, which is a sign that we are moving in the direction towards reinsertion in the world. That is our goal in our administration. As usually happens, public institutions are always running behind events, mainly speaking of innovation. We are always late when the innovation is already there. Technological innovation is already in the insurance business and is here to stay. Regulators, to a lesser or lower extent, are witnessing these changes and sometimes react too late. However, I think that in the insurance industry, as opposed to other industries where perhaps they are at a different level of progress, of innovation, the insurance industry, given its characteristics, is more reluctant to innovating. And that allows us regulators also to be up to date and being perhaps a little more at a level with the events.
Lo compara, por ejemplo, con la industria bancaria,
If we compare that to the banking industry, the development of fintechs has been quite faster and deeper. But InsurTechs and everything that has to do with innovation in the insurance industry is already here, and is here to stay. From the point of view of supervision and regulation, I think that the challenges ahead, at least those that I identify for supervisors, the two big ones are: first, what changes we have to introduce as supervisors to face these new technological apps, and how are we educated and trained to supervise and regulate the industry with this new technology that has arrived. It is clear that it's not the same to supervise the market conduct or an intermediary, an individual, than supervising or regulating a chatbot that is interacting with an individual on the other side of a mobile device offering a product and collecting information on the profile of that person through algorithms and telematic things. And so the information that is obtained allows that company to offer a product that is more customized. It's not the same to supervise and regulate that than regulating the conduct of an intermediary or a traditional broker. Undoubtedly, that technology, in my opinion, will have a stronger impact on the supervision and the changes we have to introduce in our regulations and how we supervise market conduct more than the prudential supervision. So in my opinion, we have to think that institutional supervision models where supervision, prudential supervision and market conduct supervision are not integrated, perhaps that is not the best way right now for this time. Perhaps we have to think of more integrated models, because this technological innovation will have an impact on that market conduct more than anything else. And so the supervision will have to be integrated, both conduct and prudential. It also makes me think that supervisors need to be trained and acquire knowledge that perhaps we didn't have before. Incorporate financial and legal knowledge, but also incorporate skills or knowledge in IT and hard sciences. In the future, I see regulators or supervisors that have experts in algorithms or coding and working side by side with lawyers and accountants, etc. When we start to understand the language of actuarials, now we have to start learning about these new technologies. But I think this is a huge challenge for us. I think we have to supervise technological things as well, algorithms, systems, and perhaps in the future, not so far away, even in hardware that is potentially used in the insurance activity to better detect fraud, for instance, or to make sure that the coverage is designed in a realistic way. And the second challenge that I see for us supervisors in this era of this disruption, or not disruption, it's not disruptive actually, it's already here. So it came in some sectors, but not in a disruptive way. It may be disruptive for some generations, but not for the generations that are coming. I mean, it has arrived. And the second challenge then that I identify for us in the public sector is how we regulate these new technologies. So they are also instruments for inclusion, how we promote them to bridge that protection gap, using them not only to reach more people, but also so that they can lead to creative products and more integrating coverages, such as, for instance, I can think of parametric insurance for countries that depend on farming or commodities like ours.
Y también
And also in microinsurance, such as the new technologies, how they can help cover regional economies that are based on household income. These are the two challenges, our training as well as promotion for inclusion. So without a doubt, this day will have remarkable panel members that will be approaching these topics, and I hope you can make the most of it. Thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you so much, Ignacio Federici. We will now hear from Celia Gonzalez Head. She is the head of the Regulation and Authorization Office from the General Superintendency in Costa Rica and the Association of Insurance Supervisors in Latin America.
Buenos días.
Good morning. I have to represent the Board of Directors of ASSAL and the members of the association in a very remarkable topic, one which, as my predecessor stated, is innovation. Innovation as a challenge. It's a matter of fact. Our first initial reaction as consumers, producers or regulators show some fear, even some rejection. Regulators sometimes are willing to deny innovation, to deny the fact that there is innovation in the insurance market, but technological innovation has arrived to stay, and it's an unsurmountable phenomenon. It won't stop the insurance industry. This is why having fora like the one today is so important. For the general consumer, they have as an initial reaction distrust on innovations. An example of this is the famous Uberization of things. Even if we may agree with it or not in terms of the legality of these platforms, in the end they have become a benefit to the consumer because that has helped them reduce costs at a better level of service. The first time I used Uber in Argentina, I got an email where I was being offered a discount if I took more trips in the city of Buenos Aires. I was given a list of places I could visit, and I was also offered a list of restaurants and coffee places that I could visit as well. A long time ago, anyone would have been mad at somebody else knowing that I am in Argentina, but now you feel thankful for that, and then you say, it's a very good service I'm being provided, as a matter of fact. And instruments like this, products like this, should be developed in the insurance market as well. Why would that be so? Because it will bring down costs, it will offer a better service, and they will be inclusive for many sectors that don't have access to insurance right now. It is for this reason important for the regulator to take part in fora like this one, where they will be able to get trained and to be familiar with what is going on in the industry, what the needs are that are going on in the industry, so that when they take action in the market as regulators, they will do so to correct things that are not self-corrected by the market, rather than being a hurdle or a barrier to the process. Regulators have to focus on a number of things that have to do with market behavior, consumer protection, and in ensuring access to information in order to avoid distortions. This is why regulators have to train. They have to gain an insight on the phenomenon they will be regulating, trying to not be so much laggards as to how the industry is moving. We will always be behind, but we should not stay so much behind. I'd like to thank the Initiative of Access to Insurance and the Microinsurance Network for promoting this, and the network in Argentina for welcoming us in this city. This forum will be very fruitful. It will help us take our role as regulators faced with a new challenge And our own personal experience, at least so in Costa Rica, with these type of fora, we've conducted 2 so far, has been very positive. It's an eye-opening experience for regulators and for the industry as well. What can be done in terms of democratizing insurance and making it more inclusive. Thank you so much. We will hope it is a very fruitful session for all of us today. Thank you. Thank you so much, Celia Gonzalez Head. We will finish this opening ceremony of this 14th Consultative Forum on Microinsurance Regulations for Insurance Supervisory Authorities, Insurance Professionals and Policy Developers, InsurTech Getting to the Regulatory Challenge. Let's now move on to how technological innovations in insurance face up the challenge of emerging regulators. There's 2 commentators, a panel member, and a rapporteur. We have Mr. Belloni. He's a thinker, a corporate strategical thinker. He specializes in digital and TI or IT technologies. He's an industrial technologist by ITBA. He has an MBA and has participated of the International Exchange Program of the London Business School in England. He also studied in economy, history of arts, and philosophy. His professional career involves the digital conversion of national and multinational companies working in the areas of operation and technologies in local, regional, and global roles. He has worked in pharmaceutical companies such as Hoffmann, La Roche, and others, biotech companies such as Pioneer Hybrid International, and financial services companies such as MedLife International and Zurich Insurance Group. He also provides advice to companies that are digitally retrofitting, and he also writes a book on sculpting the future. In spite of his deep understanding of technology and technological breakthroughs, his greatest concern is the impact that will be brought along by all these breakthroughs in the existing business models, as well as the impacts that this will cause in the labor market economy as a whole, considering the ethical and social levels. So let's give the floor to Carlos Belloni.
¿Tienes un clicker? El clicker para... Buen día. Muchísimas gracias a todos los sponsors.
Good morning. I'd like to thank the sponsors and the organizations for such an event and for this organization. I'd like to give you a very brief snapshot of the InsurTech industry, the technologies that are coming along, disruption, interruption. I agree on that. We have to start coexisting with this, understanding how to regulate and how to make the most. We have to gain an understanding of what this is all about. I know that there's a lot of noise going on. We listen to this on the radio. We talk a lot about the 4th Industrial Revolution. I'll try to define it very quickly. These are by Walter Schwab, the person who coined this term of the World Economic Forum. He is saying it's a merger between the digital, biological, and physical worlds. And what does he mean by this? Because it is a pretty vague definition. If you take a snapshot of what is behind us, we can get some sort of idea of what we are talking about. This is a low resolution picture. It's 8 years old. Think about the progress so far. This was embedded within the DNA of living bacteria, an upload such as a pen drive. It got let to reproduce, and generations later this photo was downloaded and the picture on the right was ensued. This is giving rise to the term biohacker, because we can start modifying the DNA, not of bacteria but of human beings. This is what we talk about when we talk about the mergers of worlds, biological, digital, and the physical world as well. The big stars in this disruption are intelligence, artificial intelligence, genetics, bioengineering, and nanotechnology. We will get to see them through in a very general manner because we cannot get into the details of them. But then the question is, why should this concern us? Why is it so important? Because it'll change the world where we live. It'll change us as species. Whenever I show this photo, it generates some disturbance, like some nervous giggles. We will get to see what this is all about. We are in the advent of a new era. We are having the possibility to modify our DNA. Hence, everything else will be possible. Reality is such that this imposes on us as subjects and as a society to give relevance to regulatory frameworks. I commend to have such an event. I commend that we are all trying to find out what technology is all about and what is ensuing as a result of it. There are mega trends. A lot was stated about lots of things. The Internet of Things, we will get into this to some level of detail. Quantum computers, I won't even mention them. Artificial intelligence, I won't even mention it either. I just want us to know that these three things together give the analytics term power that has not existed so far. If we bind analytics to AI and to quantum computers, we are in a different dimensions. It has nothing to do with what we are seeing today. Additive impression or printing, as Amazon revolutionized logistic systems around the world, additive printing is changing the production systems around the world. The changes that it will bring on economy are major. Biotechnology, this affects the industry of life insurance. We're going to talk about this briefly. Blockchain, one of the most disruptive technologies ever. An autonomous world that will change whatever has to do with the car insurance industry. But this is far more than a standalone car. And the change on the infrastructure on the world, having changes on the industry of life insurance. Even though this is a forum on insurance, everything will change. Products, insurance, everything. If all these changes, of course, microinsurance will have to change as well. On a daily basis, we are talking about the exponential growth of technology. Technology grows at an exponential rate. The pace of growth was reasonably smooth. Up until now, it went on a vertical slope. Every discovery in an area empowers discovery in another area. Everything is so much cross-linked that solutions emerge that were just an imagination of science fiction and are a reality right now. But the problem is that our mindset, our societies, our regulations, all of us follow a linear pattern. And recently Ignacio was talking about a reactionary stage in face of technology. That's logical. We are laggards. But the problem is that this divide grows bigger and bigger by the day. And this is what I am personally concerned with. When we talk about the Internet of Things, just to give you an idea, sometimes we don't quite grasp the magnitude of things. It is planned that by 2050, and this is not that far from now, on Earth there will be 50 trillion of sensors. That's dimensional. 50 trillion sensors for a population that in the best of cases will be 18 millions. On the lactic pathway, there's far less than that. So this shows that everything will be linked with absolutely everything else. We will start having smart houses, not to turn on air conditioning or the refrigerator or the coffee machine, but in order to have sensors so that sprinklers will work, so that smoke detectors will work all right, so that drains will work okay and whatnot. Cars, the poorly called cars, because now they are computers on wheels. The trend is growing in that direction. And this experience on the Golden Gate, where sensors were fitted to all the ropes to see how the structure reacts to wind, these changes will cause insurance to change the CSI forensics, as I call it. We are in face with a claim, and we spend 4 weeks studying, scrutinizing the claim to see whether we pay it or not. But we will have to move closer and closer to prevention and not to pay the claim. There's a book by a person, I don't recall the name, Dull Mistakes. He's a British professor. The name of the book I don't remember, but it's very brilliant. It shows with very expensive and specific examples how in all orders of life preventing costs 1/3 than paying the claim after the disaster has occurred, just 1/3. The insurance industry will have to move into this direction, preventing rather than paying after the fact. It is claimed that the Internet of Things is the adjacent border, because it is there, because sensors are inexpensive, because we can fit them right away, because there is no regulation, because new sensors pop up on a daily basis. Smartphones have 15 sensors even when we don't know it. These are the type of things that start to emerge. As I was saying, this potentiated with AI and quantum computers, this brings us into a different dimension. When we start talking about biotechnology, we won't get into the details. Maybe during the break we can delve into the details, but just to gain an insight of what we refer to when we talk about this. She is culturing human brains. You heard it all right. You take a cell, you take it to a pre-embryonary stage, and you evolve it into whatever you want. In this case, she's growing a brain. This is to study schizophrenia, hydrocephalus, and many things, because we want to gain an understanding of the structure of a growth of an anomalous brain. This is an area to regulate. These are challenges that are brought about by technology. In the United States, you may go to a pharmacy store, and at $199 you buy this test. You swab your tongue, you send it over by FedEx, and 15 days after the fact it's been turned around, and you get the results of all your genetic makeup, predisposition to genetic diseases, whatnot. This is the nightmare for any underwriter in an insurance company, because if I know that I'm predisposed to cancer and I take out life insurance, then I have with me asymmetrical information. Therefore, reality is, as we are saying here, we are cheating death, we are overcoming death. The life expectancy is growing, population is growing old, therefore all social security systems are in crisis, and we started having problems when it comes to selling life insurance. It is difficult enough today when life expectancy reaches 100 years. Well, let it alone. This will change life insurance products. This is a photo taken from a video, a person who has no upper limbs, and he starts gaining orthopedic arms that are moved by his thought. Since he is nervous, since his CNS is intact, he can command the movement of his artificial limbs. I won't show you pictures because they are quite impressive, but even when there is damage to CNS, you can intervene the brain and have brain-machine interfaces to gain the same movement. This is what we begin to see on a daily basis. Then this picture is not that strange, at least so. It is not that far from reality. It is no sci-fi anymore. We get to see it. Maybe not so nice, but we are aiming at this direction. 8 to 11 years ago, the Central Bank of the United Kingdom, one of the most conservative institutions around the world, said that blockchain was a technology that had to be under the radar because it was absolutely disruptive for the financial industry. And they didn't go wrong. Blockchain is a technology that mesmerizes people because of how simple it is, but it is quite complex to implement it. Lots of us have heard talk about blockchain. Few of us know what it really means and what it really means in terms of a potential. But we do know, however, the tip of the iceberg, that is cryptocurrencies. And these are photos from Mongolia. Electricity is really very inexpensive. These are mining farms on Bitcoin. But there are also insurance companies that are developing their blockchain technologies. Reality is that blockchain can disrupt absolutely everything. Companies such as Amazon, Google, Apple could be unintermediated through blockchain. Airbnb, Google could be as a result of the a person on the other end that would accept this smart contract would be done. This is the power of disruption blockchain has. Just to give you a couple of numbers, it is expected that by 2018 we start getting to see savings at $1 trillion only based on the Internet of Things. As I was saying before, preventing saves 1/3 than having to pay the claim at the end. $10 billion will be invested on things that have to do with blockchain, and 5 of 7 technological giants such as Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple, GAFAs, will disrupt themselves through blockchain. Finally, the issue of the unfossilization of economy. Here we talk about inclusive insurance. In another photo, I try to introduce the notion of inclusive technology, because there will come a point where technology will be a factor of inclusion or exclusion from society and from people. This is an artificial leaf. It takes carbon dioxide from atmosphere, and with sunlight it emits oxygen and electricity. This is nanotechnology. It is a synthetic plate that even in the San Juan desert, with less than 20% of relative ambient humidity, produces 3 liters of water with solar light, with the light of sun. This is a house printed by a 3D printer at an industrial level, of course. The cost is less than $90 per square meter. Picture out this house with this water supply and with this provision or electricity being provided. This becomes possible, and it is totally disruptive. When we talk about the impact, it is difficult to think that this will not impact absolutely everybody, the entire industry, because it is cross-sectional. In 2013, 5 years ago, with the technology at the moment, 47% of the jobs around the world could be automated. Beginning on that, the fintech term and insurtech term came about, and they became buzzwords. And there's lots of angel investors investing heavily on InsurTech. The next speaker will talk about InsurTechs more specifically, but it's a matter of having solutions in all vertical lines and in all product lines with one specificity. If you take a look at this, this is a la carte menu. There's InsurTech everywhere. If I write health here, everything looks alike. Why is that so? Because technology is causing convergency among products. If I move down to prevention, then the product is not that important any longer. The service is what matters, and this gets to change the life insurance and the insurance industry as a whole. To conclude, this is not yet seen in Latin America, but they were talking about behavioral changes. We already start seeing a major behavioral change all over the world, except for LATAM. If you contrast 2015 against 2018, the willingness of people to take out insurance through a traditional channel or through a GAFA, it goes double everywhere, yet not so in Latin America, but it won't take long. So the big challenge ahead of us is how to stop being displaced, or how to figure out how to avoid being displaced by technology, to make the most of it. And finally, the question is if insurance industry is ready, whether we are ready as individuals, and whether our regulations and regulators are ready for the challenge. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias, Carlos Belloni.
Thank you, Carlos Belloni. And now we're going to introduce the next speaker, Alex Corner. Alex Corner is the head of insurance products in Santander, Brazil, and head of the Business Intelligence Committee of the National Confederation of Insurance Companies, Pension Funds, and Life Insurance, Supplementary Health, and Capitalization. Before joining Santander, he was the head of strategy, marketing, and governance of Zurich Santander Brazil, the third insurance company in the bank insurance market in Brazil. He was the head of the business unit in Mapfre Seguros, focused on financial products, and responsible for creating the digital company the paperless and digital business. He worked at MAPFRE with life insurance and pension funds for 10 years. Nasakai MAPFRE, MAPFRE Seguros, and MAPFRE. He has an advanced program in MAPFRE, Harvard, and IAIS, program of board members, IVGC, executive program, Fundação Dom Cabral, corporate governance, MBA in marketing, and a degree in communication and marketing from San Marcos. So we welcome Alex Corner.
Buenos días a todos. Es un placer.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be in Argentina. I'd like to thank you for the invitation. I'm going to speak in 3 languages. I'm going to speak a little in Spanish, a little in English, and for those that are from Argentina, I'm going to mix Portuguese and Spanish, because Brazilians think that we can speak Spanish, but actually we don't, and so I will be speaking in different languages. So I'm going to speak a little about CIENSEG. It's a civil association that associates all federations that represent insurance companies in Brazil. We have pension funds, health, capitalization. At the CIENSEG, we have several commissions for insurance products. One of the commissions is the Business Intelligence Commission. I'm the chairman of that commission. And the idea in this commission is to conduct studies. We conducted, for instance, a study on InsurTechs and how they are in Brazil compared to the regulation. If you're interested, then I can share the study with you. But we analyzed almost all the InsurTechs we have in Brazil. And we identify the InsurTechs that are better prepared or that have problems to solve in their business portfolio. This year, we are conducting 2 big studies. One is about the digitalization of insurance companies in Brazil and how they are compared to the international market and the local market. And then the other study is about the senior population, but not with the vision we have in most studies as to the private pension funds. In this study, we are developing a vision as to what are the needs of the public, what are the products, the insurance products that we can develop to meet the needs of the senior population. In Brazil, we have a strong population, a lot of young population, but now the population is aging and needs insurance products, and today we don't have these products as they do in Japan or other industries. A little about Brazil. Brazil last year was the 9th economy in the world. And considering collection and insurance, we are in position 46 as to the per capita volume in the insurance market. There you see the assets in the sector is $355 billion in the insurance sector in Brazil, and this accounts for only 6.5% of GDP. That is, if you look at other countries like the United States or economies that are more developed, the participation of the insurance in the GDP is very low in Brazil. Even if it's the 9th economy in the world, we still have a long way to go to expand our participation. And what about the insurance market in Brazil? Today, we have almost 117 insurance companies in the market, 20 private pension funds, 18 capitalization companies, healthcare companies over 1,000, local reinsurers. This started 2 years ago in the market because in the past we only had local reinsurers. Now we also have foreign reinsurers, and formal employees, 154,000. Other figures for you to consider about the insurance market in Brazil, when you look at household insurance, for instance, today 12% of the population in Brazil has a home insurance. It's not mandatory, so not everybody has a home insurance. And if we consider life insurance, 9% of the market. Car insurance, almost 20%. So in Brazil, we have a big challenge. We have to develop insurance products for everybody to understand what product needs are there. Let's talk about the InsurTechs. This is a slide I prepared for another presentation, and it analyzes the InsurTech market in Brazil in the past few years. Out of the 117 insurance companies in the markets, we have 78 InsurTechs. Remember, in the other slides, the insurance market in Brazil is quite small. It's not that large. So there are many industries. I mean, there are many companies that act in the sector, but we have 78 InsurTechs already. What are they? These are not companies that are 100% digital insurance companies. The InsurTechs are companies that act in the value chain. So in order to consider what is an InsurTech, today we only have 2 companies that are considered 100% InsurTechs. The others act in the value chain. The market started in 2010, and it started growing until 2016, 2017, with the highest concentration. In 2018, we are almost in October. Now we are finishing the year. And if you see, few companies are being created this year. Why? Well, because we have elections that are coming, the economy is suffering. So the economy in 2018 is not that good in Brazil. But in my personal opinion, the market, as happens in other industries, is going through a consolidation. We had the first one this year. FinSec bought Bidu, another company, and they combined their customers. Because if we have so many companies acting with the same services and the same products for such a small market, at some point they will be consolidating. So we started consolidations this year. And, well, how current technological innovation in insure meet the needs of emerging customers? Well, Pablo has spoken a lot about this, but if you see, there are other things here that were not mentioned in Carlos' presentation, because this market evolves permanently. Now we have InsurTechs, FinTechs. In Brazil, we started to talk about the agrotechs. For me, this is subtechs. We will have so many terminologies and different technologies that this will be the subtechs. If we speak of examples, I can speak of all examples you can see on the slide, because insurance companies are starting to work right now on all these things. So if we speak of chatbots, for instance, in Brazil, we have insurance companies that do all the quotes through chatbots up to the end of the process. Artificial intelligence. One of the examples we have for claims, for instance. In Santander, we use the artificial intelligence for the claims. Almost 50% of the home claims are paid with an app, and we pay all home claims within 3 hours. So today, we are using technology to improve our products and our solutions to customers. And something that you also mentioned at the beginning in the introduction as to the market regulation vis-a-vis the banks. I work at a bank that has an insurance company. If you look at independent insurers, they have more difficulties in accompanying technological innovations. But we, as we are connected to a bank, we have to accompany technological innovation more rapidly. So for us, these are everyday things. If we want to be more competitive in the market, we have to start working on these topics. And in the US, they have friend insurance. We don't have this in Brazil because of a regulation issue, but we have the market. Smart contracts. When we speak of blockchain, smart contract is an evolution of the blockchain, we might say, using smart contracts for direct transactions is an important point of discussion in Brazil. Then we have gamification. When we speak of customer needs, gamification is one of the best examples we can use today, because the customer that doesn't know the insurance product as they should, then gamification is the best technology we can develop with the customer to show them how the insurance may meet their needs. This is another way of having access to the customer. But in all these items, how do we connect all this with our reality? Imagine the reality in Brazil. This is the population. We have 206 million Brazilians. In this population, almost 58% is the new generation. And they are divided like this: Y, Z, and Alpha. This is our public. This public today is already connected with all the terminology we saw in the other slide. So if we don't prepare our companies, if we don't prepare the regulator, and if the market is not prepared, we won't be connected with this audience. I have a phrase that I always use in my presentations when I speak about the insurance market. Today, we are in the market in a leadership position. Here we have a series of people that are leaders in the sector. Well, I've seen some surveys that show that customers, not only Brazil, but in Latin America and in Europe and in the United States, don't know the insurance product as they should because of the terminology that is very complex, because they don't know the word claim or loss. It's quite difficult to explain this process for the customer. But all of us here in leadership positions, if in 10 years, if in 10 years we still have the same problem that people don't understand our language, it's because we didn't do our job correctly. Our job is to understand how technology and insurance will meet their needs. We have to translate insurance to their everyday language. So this is the challenge for me. 10 years from now, I have to look backwards, and if I see that customers understand more about insurance than 10 years before, it's because here we did our job. And I hope that with you, not only regulators from Brazil that are here, but from other countries, I hope we can all look backwards 10 years from now and see that we made a change in the market. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Alex Corner.
Thank you, Alex Corner. So now we're going to invite the moderator for this panel. She's going to invite the commentators. She's Andrea Camargo, a qualified attorney from Colombia, specified in insurance law and international economic law, with more than 16 years of experience in insurance and 11 years of experience in the microinsurance sector. Currently, she is the director of strategy at Microinsurance Catastrophe Risk Organization, a reinsurer that offers risk transfer solution against natural disasters for the most vulnerable. She also has wide experience in providing advice and recommendations to professionals of microinsurance and policy makers as to the promotion of best practices to facilitate the development and implementation of microinsurance products and ensuring that microinsurance customers are well protected. She has advised regulators from several countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, like Peru, Colombia, Jamaica, Guatemala, and El Salvador, and in Africa, in Tunisia and the Democratic Republic of Congo. She collaborates with the Access to Insurance Initiative, so she's with you, Andrea Camargo.
Bueno, buenos días.
Good morning. I think we are all quite surprised after sharing these experiences with Carlos and Alex. Carlos gave us this general overview of InsurTech, and she has sent many messages. Technology is an important element for inclusion, and it's important to understand it in order to regulate it and be prepared for the future. Alex told us about the case of Brazil, what they are doing there. So we have this overview, which is very important. Now, I would like to start with a second stage in this session, and I will invite two representatives from supervisors in Latin America to join the panel so that we can share and understand what their concerns are, what their position is about this progress. So first, I will invite on stage Maria Jose Gutierrez Sanchez. She's an attorney and notary public. She's here on behalf of the SIGOIF, that is the Superintendency of Banks and Other Financial Institutions of Nicaragua. She is responsible for the legal department in the Insurance Superintendency. And I will invite also Maria Claudia Frigola La Cognata. She's an economist and attorney. She has graduate degrees in technical management of insurance, and she is from the Central Bank of Paraguay. She's been there for 24 years. Maria Claudia is now the head of the Actuarial Studies Division and Insurance Plans of the Superintendency of Insurance.
De pronto, para empezar, quisiera...
So to start, I will ask Maria Jose, she's from SIGOIF, from Nicaragua, to tell us a little about what kind of exposure they've had in Nicaragua to these technological advancements, to InsurTech. What can you tell us about Nicaragua? Good morning. First, I would like to thank Access to Insurance Initiative for inviting me to participate here. Well, the experience in Nicaragua, although we are quite a small market, in the past 2 years, we've taken some actions in order to facilitate insurance companies to the extent possible and within the regulatory framework that contemplates a traditional insurance activity. We have supported insurance companies that have been interested in not perhaps becoming InsurTech companies, but introduces some technologies in their insurance activities. We have facilitated the taking out of insurance policies through non-traditional mechanisms. This year, for instance, we approved a product that is also the underwriting process that is done through a platform with a mobile telephony company. In that case, the contract process and the process to contact the customers is done through mobile phones. And a few months ago, we also approved an insurance product that is a satellite parametric product where the claims are no longer done in the traditional way, but they are based on satellite data. This is provided by the reinsurer, both to the contracting parties and to the insurance company itself. We have tried to change the supervision schemes, our mindset, because as Celia was explaining, we cannot, for fear or for lack of knowledge, we cannot prevent insurance companies to try and embrace these new models. We cannot be lagging behind. Thank you, Maria Jose. Maria Claudia, from the Paraguayan perspective, how have you been exposed to this kind of innovations in technology in insurance? Thank you for the invitation. In Paraguay, we are being exposed mainly in the farming insurance sector. And we also have an insurance product that was approved that is a parametric product. It uses satellite technology. This is a pilot program. It is just being implemented. we cannot, of course, forbid this kind of innovations because of lack of knowledge. Sometimes we are not prepared to control and verify these products, but we are doing our best so as to protect the consumer. That in this case would be, in this case, the government, in fact, is subsidizing these insurance products, so our engagement is very important. And we also have proposals for insurance products that will be offered through the internet. They still haven't been approved, but we've had the preliminary discussions, and this will be done through a platform. Filling out the forms, for instance, will be one of the steps that will be done on the internet. It has to do with healthcare. All the medical records will also be sent over the internet. So we are going to be exposed to that kind of products. So this is what we are having so far. Then we have other parametric insurance products. This has to do with the yield in the acres in the farming sector, but it's not been a problem. So we can realize that we are not speaking of a future that is far ahead, that will create concerns in the supervisor. When we see that in Latin America, we already have examples, and this implies that the supervisor has some questions and doubts about these innovations. So I would like to start with Maria Claudia. What questions or what learnings, what lessons have you learned connected to Alex's presentation? What do you think of the experience of Brazil? Do you think it could be applicable in Paraguay?
I wanted to know, since we are so close, geographically speaking, and you are so much advanced, we are part of the Mercosur. Could you please let me know what the process was like, the dialogue you had, that is the industry and the supervisory authority, in making progress on this issue in Brazil? Which was the process that got adopted in order to keep promoting all those things that I've seen? There are lots of things that you have. And at the same time, how are you protecting the consumer from this type of technology?
Mira, acabo de dividir un poco la
Well, I'll break down the question into a number of points. Since 2012, 2013, the InsurTech market started developing in Brazil. At the same time, we had a number of new events that happened. This type of conferences were offered around InsurTech, so we needed fora to discuss ideas. So we started creating fora like this in order to exchange notions around InsurTech. In June 2017, the regulatory agency in Brazil created a special ad hoc committee. It's a committee in order to engage in discussion. It's called the Committee on Innovation and InsurTech. This committee meets on a monthly basis, and the CNC is invited, Federation, the School of Insurance in Brazil, and other members of the industry in the sector to talk about how innovations are doing in the sector in InsurTech. So beginning on the moment where the regulator who was participating from these lectures organize a committee like this, it is because they are interested and they want to clearly discuss with the market. I believe that this was the first step towards having a feedback as we are having right now in Brazil. So when we have an open field for discussing with regulators, these promote lots of areas of market development. Finally, clients on new technologies. There's 2 points to discuss here. Of course, there's data exposure, because you have to I mean, the client has to be provided data, and they have to provide you data so that you can do things differently from what we are doing today. In Brazil, in May this year, an act was passed for data protection. It has a number of rules that are stronger than those in the American market. We could have a law in Brazil that should be different. I mean, it should be a phased approach, but they actually wanted to be so strong that they created some sort of benchmark based on the English and American markets. And this was developed for the Brazilian market, but today we don't have the technological infrastructure that other countries have. We are not a first world country, so we have a first world law with an infrastructure that is more of a third world. So this is a very strong point we are discussing in Brazil. So we have to have a data protection for clients, but then we have to also have the client data to do the things that we need on that market. That's the point.
María José, de pronto,
From the perspective of the supervisory authority, all these innovations we heard this morning on behalf of Carlos and Alex can have a lot of applications in the insurance market. Do you have any question you'd like to ask Carlos or Alex on the application of these technologies in these processes of the life cycle where insurance is purchased? I'd like to ask Carlos, what has been the impact, what is the impact of InsurTechs in operating processes around insurance, that is identifying customer needs, product development, down to claims being answered? Well, there's a huge impact, and we get to see lots of examples. If you take a look at claims, I don't want to give names or name names, but there's an AI that's called Watson that takes care of claims. In a previous experience in a company, I took part of a pilot test for a global service centers to take care of claims powered by this AI, by this artificial intelligence. The solution, the settlement of a claim that can take a person between 3 weeks if everything runs all right and if everything runs smoothly, well, Watson would find a solution in 5 minutes. So the impact is devastating. If you think about distribution or product creation, it's even a bigger impact. So we have to gather data or find data, as Alex was saying. Many times we do find data and we gain an understanding on how we can use them, but that's only later, after having gained those data. There is experience in South Africa, in many places where insurance appears tailor-made to people's needs. In Peru, there's an entrepreneur called Fiwa who had created an application insurance so that when you go to a soccer field to watch a match, you activate the insurance for personal accidents. After you watch the match, you disable it, so it's active during that period. Of course, the product is a different one. The need is a different one altogether, and you are taking care of that need in a personalized manner, in a tailor-made approach. Insurance comes about for kids. For the generation Alex was mentioning, my daughter is 27. I worked for 30 years in insurance, in life insurance industry. My daughter would never take out an insurance policy on life, but she does get an insurance on her mobile phone. If I go on holidays, I may activate insurance to protect my home while I'm not there. So things appear based on specific needs. As I always say, technology is only an enabler. It allows us to do things differently. What matters is to detect the need, the friction, the point of friction we have, and technology helps get rid of that. Thank you. A question to you in following up on data, because as a matter of fact, a concern for supervisory authorities is managing personal data that are gathered today based on a multiplicity number of means. Social media is one of them, through wearables, and this information can be accessed on the part of the insurance industry. This drives me into this reflection, which I reflected on in the year 2000, but that was more connected to the human genome. At that point, there was a big ethical discussion on what to do with that information. As a matter of fact, the insurance industry at that time was highly interested in having access to that information, because I will have access to the human genome of an individual, then I'll know which diseases they are more likely to have. It was an ethical issue, and the decision that was made at the time was say, we won't be creating crystal citizens. That's a term that got coined at the time, because they will have to be transparent for the industry, and in the end, what will be generated is an exclusion. Because a person who, according to their genetic makeup, have predisposition to a given disease would probably not have access to insurance, or their premium would be very costly. So we use this same reasoning to this type of data. Today, we are in a situation where we are barefooted in front of many providers, key providers, such as those of financial services. How do we confront such an issue, considering that this fora is on inclusive insurance? How do we go about protecting those data in such a way that we won't wind up creating financial exclusion because of their existence? Well, I'll try to get back to your question in several steps. Data is very complex. It requires lots of analysis and nuisances. We have to regulate and protect. There is information that is sensitive. We share data voluntarily with everyone. That's how we are as human beings. There's this dichotomy, as I reckon. There is a concern on protecting some information, and I agree on that one. But I'm all right. Well, I have no Facebook account, but people who have Facebook or Instagram or lots of social media upload a load of information, even much more than your genetic information. AI can today detect diseases by taking a look at your photo. You might as well run the same risk without having shared your genetic information. It's too complex an issue to bring it down to an answer, whether a yes or a no. You have to scrutinize it. I celebrated what was stated before, beginning to study the problem. All regulatory agencies have to have technology experts in order to be abreast of the problem rather than behind. FDA, one of the biggest healthcare regulators in the United States, have technology experts because they already printing a drug. There is a drug that gets printed on a 3D machine. For that drug to get approved, technological experts had to take part. There is a treatment against cancer based on a programming of a treatment target cells that is based on an algorithm. It's the first time that an algorithm rather than a medical treatment gets patented with FDA. But of course, IT engineers had to take part in that. So we have to start studying the problem because it's too complex a problem, and information is far more available than we can ever imagine. There is an experience that was made or done with a random picture. I take a photo of you, I upload it to the web, and I might take the social security number of this person. How come? That's already available. So sometimes we want to protect things that there's no turning back. 2 minutes ago, I was talking with Stephanie on a digital identity. We do have a digital identity, whether we like it or not, based on all the things we post, based on all the things we do. And this digital identity will even be more important than the physical one, to such an extent that in the United States there is an ongoing discussion on whether, if in immigration they may ask for your Facebook password to identify and check your digital identity. Data as an issue is extremely complex, and I wouldn't like to boil it down to a short answer because it is not a binary approach. It's very right. It's important to highlight this problem and how important it is for supervisory authorities together with the industry to engage in a virtuous cycle of information to see how to confront these problems. Maria Claudia. an important issue here that has to do with the expertise that you referred to before. There's so many innovators. We have a diverse background of professionals here, but professions, those who are representing the superintendency, are lawyers, economists, and there are a number of limitations at the level of financial resources in them having experts on such a plethora of innovative topics. So, Maria Claudia, you do have experience in Paraguay with parametric insurances. There's lots of innovation on technologies that you had to learn and get involved with. Could you please walk us through the process? And how would you like for the industry of insurance to give you support in order for you to gain greater knowledge of these type of innovations and generate this level of expertise that is generated and expected on the part of the supervisory authorities? The problem that we are having is that the greatest number of tools are controlled by insurance companies. So our role in controlling the behavior in the market, supervisors have to be extremely well trained in order to protect and take care of the interest of policyholders. We also are having sales on the phone. We are selling insurance on the phone. We've been asked for authorization, but the fact-finding, the conversation remains with the insurer, and clients have no proof of that conversation and on the agreements that were made. And we also have algorithms that determine the circumstances that are triggered for the execution of an agricultural insurance. How do we go about at the superintendency having, or how do we control so that all the surveys, land surveys, climate change surveys, well, that escapes the knowledge of policyholders. And all this could be a paradigm in and of itself in the supervisory area where we are at. And we are subjected, so to speak, to a prudential type of supervision. In this era of risk-based supervision, we have to prioritize or design policies based on controls in place, controls on risks. And so we are kind of left out.
Creio que o ponto de discussão.
That's an interesting point of discussion when you talk about sales over the phone. You have to store the recording. You have to store the recording even after 20 years. That is, files have to be kept for over 20 years. This is the telephonic conversation to take out an insurance contract. So as of today, we have regulations that protect the interest of clients. And in order to state that the sale was done in an organized manner, if the client asks to be engaged on the phone, we have to keep a record of that in the event of a claim. We have a regulation that protects the interest of clients, and the issue of the regulatory body, well, they have to be more connected with the market, and that is better in order to see what the best way to protect the customer's interest is. But today we have a number of devices to protect the client. When you have information on the soil, that is on weather, when you use satellites or drones to calculate the premium, then you are more accurate in calculating that. You will be more transparent in order to see whether it is possible to take out agricultural insurance on a part in particular. Sometimes the client works on a fertile piece of land next to a river or something that is a limitation, that is an environment limitation, and they want to take out a claim, and then in the event of a claim, no payment will be enabled. So this will help you be more transparent with the client and will help you more in the relationship you will have with the insurance product.
Si me dejas construir sobre eso, déjame desafiarte.
Let me challenge you on the statement that insurance companies today have more information than people themselves. This is on a two-way approach. Parametric insurance, our experience in Argentina is that there are associations, civil associations that are not for profit that do have access to this information. That's on the one hand. But today, Google has more information than any insurance company in the world. I work in a healthcare company. Google has more information about myself than my own healthcare company on my own existence. Be careful, because we go back to the issue of data property. There is a circulation of data that is very big, and information, even though the recording may be physically filed with the insurance company, this doesn't mean that you won't have access to it, nor that you will be prevented from having access to it. What does it take us to? It takes us to that in cooperation efforts, as Alex was mentioning in Brazil, it's not just a matter of including the insurance industry in these discussions, but as a matter of fact, these not-for-profit agencies that have today access to this information in a number of different ways. This is very relevant in encouraging dialogue. Maria Jose, we have discussed a number of issues in other contexts. The impact. Are there examples, specific examples, on the application of these technologies? And this question goes to the end of, or from Maria Jose to Alex. The issue of InsurTech is one with a high financial inclusion. An accountable financial inclusion should always have transparency of operations and protection on consumers as a key priority. In Brazil, this goal was met, that of including and protecting consumers and of transparency in operations from a contractual perspective. I believe it's a yes, but it's a process. Since we have new technologies, the process for client protection has to evolve. You have regulations, and there's a part to them that already controls clients' interest. There is a law in Brazil of remote means that issues the certification of sales conducted on the web. So we can improve today the instruments that are available for client protection. But when it comes to inclusion, that in a way has to do with inclusive insurance. When you develop microinsurance, in Brazil in 2014, a law was passed on microinsurance. This was to get started with a market that was not available. In 2014, technologies were not in place as you have today to make a less expensive process for the client. The final cost for the client will be high. What about the collection mechanism that can be implemented massively in order for microinsurance to be enabled? So the law was passed in 2014. The market did not develop as the regulator expected, but as of today, we have more fertile land to develop, based on new technologies, the products that we want for that market. So I believe that this talks about an evolution. I don't think that there's anything more to say. The challenge is a big one. The only way out is for all of us to start working together, industry, regulators, associations. We have to be a step ahead rather than lagging behind. In his introductory remarks, Ignacio was talking about that, being reactive to changes, and we have to change that paradigm. Well, here we have asked questions to Carlos and to Alex, but I'd like to ask you whether you are yourselves interested in asking questions to the representatives of superintendencies from Nicaragua and Paraguay before we open up to the floor so that attendees will ask questions.
Quizás
Perhaps I'm not so familiar with the markets in Paraguay or Nicaragua, but what do you think of this advancement of technology in terms of regulation? And I'm asking this because 2 or 3 months ago, Elon Musk, quite a controversial person, an angel investor that funds InsurTechs and FinTechs and all the techs we mentioned before, when he went out of the meeting at a press conference, he was asked, what are you doing in there? And his answer was, what they are doing is fantastic. There's no regulatory framework or law that can contain that. So the question is, how can we be prepared for that? Because that is the biggest challenge. Technology will come with such a strength in fields that we'd never thought of. So how are we going to be prepared for that? And I was showing that slide showing that Latin America is quite lagging behind, but we will get there. Perhaps it will take us more time to be prepared, which is great. I mean, we have more time. Well, at least in my country, the regulatory framework for the insurance business contemplates the traditional insurance contract. We have a law for digital signatures that still hasn't been enforced. For us, as regulators, it is a legal limitation vis-a-vis the consumer, and also for ourselves as supervisors, because we think there's a risk in the operations if it is not done through that electronic signature. I mean, the law is there, but in practice it cannot be enforced because so far there are no certification providers. I mean, there's no provider that can certify these digital signatures. And it's always a concern for us to comply with the law that protects the rights of consumers. And this contemplates the delivery of physical documents and some obligations on the part of financial service providers in terms of explaining to the client the product that they are purchasing. And the consumer also has the obligation to ask and to try to clarify all the doubts they may have about the product. These are very important aspects for us. But speaking of InsurTechs, we don't know how to combine both things. I mean, consumer protection, I mean, knowing the product that they are purchasing, but also it's perhaps not very practical through the InsurTech product.
Quisiera saber, siendo la InsurTech.
I have a question. InsurTechs have a strength, that is financial inclusion and the development of our markets, but their implementation involves many risks as well. What have been the mitigating factors? I mean, or how can that risk be mitigated involved in the implementation of InsurTechs? I think that InsurTechs cannot have a different regulation. They are insurance companies, so they need to have the same mitigating factors as any other insurance company. In Brazil, at some point there was a discussion for a law for InsurTechs, but InsurTechs are insurance companies. Their sales channel is the internet or perhaps another insurance distribution model, but the mitigating factors have to be the same. Otherwise, it would be creating this schizophrenia in the insurance market. They are a market player, and they have to compete against the traditional insurance companies. And some traditional insurance companies are developing their own InsurTechs. In MAPFRE, for instance, they have their own InsurTech company that sells through the internet. So they need to play by the same rules. Otherwise, we will have a different market model. And the risk there is also putting barriers to the entrance of InsurTechs. If I just put the same Solvency II limits to an InsurTech, that can also be a challenge, and we have to consider that. That is the purpose of this session, mapping those concerns and what may happen or not. Well, this perhaps will be discussed in session 3, where we will see what regulatory tools have been implemented. But before completing this panel, I would like to emphasize something that you mentioned all along, and that is that tension between the promotion of these technologies, because we know that they are key to promote access to insurance and improve the experience, because we know that in inclusive insurance, the trust from the customer is essential, and this kind of technologies support that. So it's important to promote, but at the same time, as Maria Jose and Maria Claudia mentioned, it's very important to make sure that we are protecting the consumer efficiently. So again, we are facing, this constant imbalance as to how to confront the challenge of the supervisor in this act. I think we're running out of time. Perhaps we can have one question from the audience. I think there's no time, I'm sorry. So please don't hesitate to contact the panelists if you have any questions for them. Thank you. Thank you, Andrea Camargo, the moderator, Carlos Belloni, Alex Corner, commentators, María José Gutierrez Sanchez and María Claudia Frívola Lacoñata.
Todos los invitamos cordialmente a pasar.
Thank you, and we invite you to the first floor to share a coffee break, and then we'll meet again to continue with this 14th Consultative Forum on Microinsurance Regulation for insurance supervisory authorities, insurance professionals, and policy developers. So we invite you to the first floor. Thank you.